It's the podcast that the sly serpent warned you about.
Welcome to Biting All the Apples, where two gals discuss one radical book.
The 1895 bestseller, The Woman's Bible, by Elizabeth Cady Stanton.
I'm Sarah Kay.
I'm Joanna V.
And today we're taking you through some 19th century lady takes on parts of Exodus, the second chapter in the Bible set 400 years after the people we met in old Genesis. There's trouble in Egypt, and women are going to save everyone but barely get a mention. All that and lots of circumcision right after our disclaimers.
Right. Biting All the Apples covers analysis of religious texts. Some listeners that are religious out of the need for the illusion of certainty may find the content offensive.
And we hope you don't.
We hope you don't. Open minds.
Biting All the Apples also discusses historic texts and feminist movements. We recognize that individuals, groups, and alternative movements have been left out of history. We will note that whenever possible, we are also open to additional information provided to us in the spirit of expanding knowledge, because we really do want to know.
We do. That's why we're here.
I know. We sound like we know everything.
Because we're good at that.
Right. You can tell
What
from
is that? Imposter syndrome. But
a reverse imposter syndrome.
But we are very open-minded.
Yes.
So, and also, you know, we are aware that we don't know everything.
That's right.
But we want to know. So check us, if you will.
And we're also aware of just how gap-filled and faulty and stuff the feminist histories that we've been told. So,
right?
You know, yeah.
I mean, we should all be aware, and especially now, because could be disappearing, you know?
That's right.
So this is our job. On that note, you know, we went to church, right? We went to catechism all my life, right? Well, I will say until I was like 13. I was really involved. And so I was like, Exodus, I know this story. But then I was reading and I was like, I'm going to go back because I don't know if I really do know
That's right.
who these people are. I mean, I know the story, right? I mean, everybody knows the parting of the sea, right? But I wanted to go back and figure out where all these people came from that were the descendants, right?
Right.
Because we know from our last episode that God only liked Noah, right? Right? He was like,
we're still mad about that.
woo!
No.
He was like, stuff's gone wrong. But Noah, save us. And so all these descendants came from Noah. I mean, essentially, obviously, because they were the only people left on earth.
Yeah.
If we follow the Bible.
Are you holding like a genealogy report?
I am.
You're like, you're getting. See,
I am.
told you we are experts.
I had to know. This is what it does. It makes me question things, and then I'm like, I'm going to go find out now. But I did just want to say that the Israelites are descendants of Jacob. And Jacob is Abraham's grandson, and Abraham is a direct descendant of Noah because Noah's son Seth. So just in case anybody wanted to know.
Yeah, I'm going to need like a visual flow chart for that. But
you know, I sent you some pictures.
Okay.
So you check those out later.
Yeah, and we'll have to post those.
Yeah.
This is technically our fourth episode, and it's taken this long for me to realize that we haven't really let listeners know which chunks of the Bible.
Ooh.
Because we've been like, oh, she's only talking about the certain chapters and sections that pertain to women. So I'm going to do better today. Because the chapters on Exodus, I mean, all the chapters really only have, anywhere from 3 to 10 passages.
Yeah,
from
the little lines.
So it doesn't tell the whole story of Exodus.
You have to know it. That's why I went back, because I was like, I thought I was pretty well versed.
Right.
I'm not at all. And
you have to know it.
And I actually don't think the Catholic Church really read directly from the Bible. They made stories more exciting for children, which is when I stopped learning about it, which is why my knowledge is that of 13 and lower. You're welcome.
You're welcome. And we're here to share that with you.
I'm here to share my knowledge.
Speaking of 13 to 14 years, that's what I noticed. So chapter 1 of the Women's Bible covers Exodus 1, verses 1 through 5, and then 15 through 22. I mean, is that helpful?
Well,
I don't know.
Well, if you have a Bible
That's
at home,
We'll
obviously,
check it out.
yes.
Yes.
Because a lot of people do have, I have a Bible at home too.
So what happens in this part of Exodus is the Israelites prosper in Egypt, but a new king arises and puts them into hard labor. And then he commands that all the baby boys be killed. That's like the quick summary of what's going on.
Do you know who my favorite character from this is? Which he's not in the women's Bible, but that Pharaoh didn't he came after Joseph, and I was like, who's Joseph? Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat guy.
That's where this is what we're talking about?
So
I like how you get excited. I'm like, I've seen the movie.
So they were
or the play.
they were descendants of Jacob who lived under the new Pharaoh. He didn't even remember Joseph, and Joseph is like main figure of my life.
See,
but the guy in Exodus didn't even remember him, and I feel like if you don't even remember Joseph, the
or
dream
his coat,
teller,
yeah,
right.
If you don't remember that, should we be listening to you?
But we are.
I don't know.
We are. Those are things I learned while I was reading.
Did you notice, too, that it's Elizabeth Cady Stanton is the one that does most of the responses through this whole thing. And so she talks about how the numbers of the Israelites doubled every 14 years. And eventually the Pharaoh becomes nervous because he's like,
all these people are populating,
and they have, people in groups. It's pretty powerful.
People in groups. We were talking.
Yes.
That if you could organize people, and he was like, "Ooh, that's a lot of people you're birthing."
Yeah, he's like, but their free labor is really handy. It's giving us a lot of wealth. And my notes were like, if Stanton was a little more of a commie, she would have actually commented. But there are like so many parts like. When she's commenting, she does kind of avoid the pertinent stories about exploited labor.
Yes.
For everybody. I've noticed that.
Yeah, there's no focus on that. It's mainly women.
Which you know what? She did title this the Women's Bible. So
yes. She did it. She did it right. I wanted to say on that note, we were talking about that, but they were saying that certain people were born to be that slave labor, the chosen people. So that distinction is in the Bible still. I mean, that's what they were saying. There's two descendants, I can't remember which was which, but, certain people were, destined to be that working class and others weren't. So that right there in the Bible, that's where it's stated. But there was, even back then, there was biblical criticism, even back in the 1800s.
And of using the Bible to
just in all of this history of where everybody came from.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So like all these people, so they spend so much time telling you where everybody came from, right? They're like, this person was born from this person, and they had 7 children, and every 7 years they had to have 7 more, and then it doubled by 14, and there's these numbers, right? But then there were people even back then going, here's a quote, because this was a university in Germany, Bonn University. I had never heard of it, but it's a research university started.
Well, you're like, it's only the most famous one.
Well, it is. It's super famous in Germany, but
it's a big deal.
I'm an American. I don't learn about other countries.
I didn't know it.
Okay,
I don't know it.
So it's been around since 1818. But back then, when they wrote this Bible, 1895, they were coming out and they said the Old Testament history seems to be, quote, a series of legends and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, mythical persons. And they tried to get the word out, but the ordinary German professor said it's too heavy to put that into general circulation because so many people rely on this to live their lives, the Bible. So,
and you can't live your life based on myths because the Greeks and Romans.
So maybe they were like, well, you don't need to
cultures,
right? They're like, but people think this is real, and you don't want to shake up.
Right? They're like, the Bible is a history book.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, if it is, that's what Elizabeth Cady has got a little bone to pick because she's like, where are the gals at?
Where are the gals at?
Where are the girls at?
You spend all this time telling us who was born from where and who's having these babies.
And she's like, She says women may not have been counted in these 70 souls that were. What were the 70 souls? Now that I'm like, what are they?
They're the descendants.
The descendants, yes.
So this is something I looked up because, so they leave the 70, Abraham's grandson Jacob and his family of 70.
Thank you.
Went to Egypt, where Joseph had been elevated second in command over Egypt. So this was before the Pharaoh of Exodus. So they started with 70, and after a few hundred years, they filled the land with people, 70. But Elizabeth says in there, maybe it was more than 70. They just didn't count women as people.
Right. She's like, it wasn't uncommon because women don't have souls. And she talks about that in her response. And I have the quote here. It says, like, we find at many points that the Bible does not reckon women as souls. And she's talking about the 70 souls from the loins of Jacob. She goes, if so, the phraseology would have been more in harmony with the idea if the 70 souls had emanated Minerva-like from the brain of Father Jacob rather than from his loins.
Yeah.
From the brain of Father Jacob.
He thought him, and they just shot out of some woman somewhere.
Yeah.
And we don't need to know her name.
We don't need to know her name. That's her whole, like, yeah.
I mean,
bone to pick with.
Yeah, she's like, what the heck? Like, where did all these people come from?
And in this one, too, I had some notes about Shiphrah and, is it Puah?
It says Puah. I would read it as Puah. Puah.
That should be a popular
They're
name. Maybe it is.
I love it. They're midwives. So basically, they were the nurses of the day, I would assume.
Yeah, they were the midwives of the day. And she talks about how the children of Israel multiplied so rapidly that Pharaoh became alarmed. Lest the nation should become mightier than the Egyptians, so he ordered all the males at birth to be slain.
Yeah.
Seriously, Bogue. To this end, he had a private interview with the midwives, 2 women, Shiphrah and Puah, and laid his commands upon them. But they did not obey his orders and excused themselves on the ground that Jewish women seldom needed their services. Here we have another example of women who feared God and yet used deception to accomplish what they deemed right. And I'm like, okay, deception. We're not even that far into the Bible. And yet we're seeing women kind of like break the rules, but all for like what's right.
Yes.
Just like that apple full of knowledge. Yeah.
We do it for the right reasons.
Yes. And then Stanton goes on to talk about how but women are like way more punished for crimes than men.
Yes, even though... Yeah, and that was in her day. She kept talking about the 19th century.
Yes.
Which, of course.
Why would she do that?
She would.
Does she not know about 2025?
Yeah, right? And I was like, ooh, geez. Yes. But yeah, she's like, all these laws, we can be convicted under, even though they say he did this. There's no she, there's no her. But yet, when we want to add in she and her, not a chance.
Not a chance. Not a chance. And then on, she says, we are so accustomed to the assumption that men alone form a nation that we forget to resent such texts as these.
Yeah, we just become just so bogged down by everyday life and the fact that we've been living in these norms that it just becomes, well, yeah, that's just the way it is, you know? It's been that way. Nothing needs to change.
That way. Women are always up to no good, even if they're doing it for the greater good.
Yeah, I have a quote from that same area. It says,
It's
certainly curious that there should have been only 2 daughters to 68 sons with the 70, right?
Yeah.
But perhaps the 70 souls refer to only sons, and the daughters are merely persons, not souls, because that is not an uncommon notion with people all around the world. So apparently back in the 19th century, the missionaries were like, oh, yeah, women...
Yeah, incubators.
Yeah, they don't have souls.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, they're like, do incubators have souls?
Yeah.
I don't think they had incubators in the 19th century. They might have.
No, but, essentially that's what it seems like that's what they thought of women. Oh, I know. And she also refers to us as our unfortunate sex. Because obviously everything in this book is written to women, written by women, for women, and in the voice of women, right? Yes. So she's like, well, because we were born into this unfortunate sex. We just have to put up with it, or we need to fight these ideas that were written by
By who knows who.
By who knows who. And even, she's like, even people at that Bonn University are saying, guys, this seems a little like some of these things couldn't happen. Are you sure it's not just a story to help us? Are you sure? And they're like, oh no, don't. Like, people believe in this. We don't want to shake things up.
And it's funny because it's not that you have to believe in the idea, like the Christian idea of like God is love. They're like, no, you have to believe this book is the word.
Is the word. This is the word of God written by,
yes,
whomever.
So they're like, Bonn University, just let the sleeping dog lie.
Yeah, and actually, Exodus, I did read, is supposed to be written by Moses. Moses wrote this.
Oh, well, that's why That's why he's the main protag.
Yeah, but then it got lost, and then someone had to transcribe his writing. It was probably hard to read. I mean, he was alive a long time ago.
Yeah,
and also at that time they had no written word.
Which is, did you see this?
I did.
I will just read this last quote in this section because this is where, okay, so I know before I've been like, oh my gosh, because she's so sassy and like, talks about like ignorant people. And now I'm like, okay, Elizabeth, like this is, so she's talking about, and they don't cover the part from the 10 Commandments.
Well,
in
this particular section.
In this particular section of the Women's Bible.
No, I want to back you up.
Back it up.
You said they don't mention the 10 Commandments. They do, but they don't state them. They say Moses went out and they were written on this block of thing.
Thank you.
And he came down and said, God said, we got to follow these 10 things.
Thank you. Thank goodness we are doing this together.
Right? I'm just saying, they mentioned it because he takes all of his people.
Yes.
He's got to leave Egypt because people are trying to kill their kids, right?
Yes.
So he leaves, and all these people follow him, but he goes to Mount Sinai, and God visits him and
gives him some tablets. He's like, take 2.
But it's funny. It's so funny because, as you're about to quote.
Yes. So, and she, right before this, she says, in this way, the Jewish religion and the Mosaic Code were established. That's just what Elizabeth said. Again, I'm not an expert in Judaism. Quoting Elizabeth, as these people had no written language at that time and could neither read nor write, they were fitting subjects for all manner of delusions and superstitions.
It's funny.
They're just so vulnerable. The question naturally suggests itself to any rational mind. Why should the customs and opinions of this ignorant people who lived centuries ago have any influence in the religious thought of this generation?
And that was her generation. And I would like to say, and in our generation. Why? Why?
I'm sure if we just use that quote, that would convince so many people. I'm kidding.
Right, because it hasn't.
Everybody loves being called ignorant.
Yes. A little more added research from my side. The 10 Commandments eventually expanded to 52 more. But they were good. I mean, they were nice commandments. I mean, you've read them. Honor thy father and mother.
I haven't read 52 of them.
I know, right? So I'm like, they
not
expanded
interested.
them. And then it said even expanded and like included things like hold your seat. Social justice.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah. I mean, the commandment, the 10 Commandments. Don't you?
I know the 10 Commandments.
Don't you? Don't kill somebody.
A lot of school children will soon know because I believe those are going up around.
Right. It's going to help everybody to know, hey, don't kill people.
I do like that is considered something that would help people like have a moral code.
Yeah. Having them up will mean nothing if you don't like.
Especially with the biblical language where I remember being like, covet? What are you talking about?
Do not covet your neighbor's. Does it say wife? I would have to read them again. But you're not supposed to covet.
Get the list. It doesn't have 52.
Don't covet someone else's person.
Yeah.
Because that's rude.
That is one thing I remember as a kid. I kind of did like the 10 Commandments because I was like, that shit is so weird.
I think we had to memorize them. And obviously it stuck. It stuck all these years later. I'm like, I know that you're not supposed to kill and you shouldn't covet someone else's husband or wife. But I do think it just says wife.
But I mean,
that'll be in the notes.
Elizabeth didn't note that. So she's like, that's what she does know is that she thinks that the 10 Commandments are just for men. I think that comes later in a section.
Well, because women aren't mentioned. She's like, must be just for men because
Right.
Women don't have souls, and nothing matters to us. So why should we follow the Bible, peeps, unless they start giving us some written time, putting us in there, putting a few names in there.
We need more page time. And the other part of Exodus that she covers in so Exodus 2, and this is verses 1 through 22. And this is about Levi. And so this is about Moses' birth.
Da-da-da.
Again, Elizabeth is talking about how women are not named.
They're just, vessels for shooting out kids. We got to fill the earth. We're populating the earth. So, but that Pharaoh was going off when Moses' mother was pregnant. Yeah. So I'm sure it was not a calm time for her to have a baby. Right?
She said the Pharaoh was popping off.
He wanted to kill all the firstborns.
Right. So she had to save Moses.
Well, she wanted to save her baby, right?
And this is where the Pharaoh's daughter goes and gets.
Well, because mom sends him off in the river. Don't you remember that picture in the Bible?
I remember it from like a movie.
Yeah, probably. Or I had a picture Bible.
Yeah.
But she came and she's like, oh, a baby in a basket.
Yes.
And she goes right to the evil. The baby goes straight to the guy that wants to kill him. But they don't know. It's a baby. They're like, oh, well, maybe not this baby.
Maybe not this baby.
Even though I can tell it's a little Hebrew baby.
He was a goodly baby, so she kept him.
So that's the part that they are. So she sets him on, and yeah, Moses joined. This Moses is like obviously this is his story. He's writing his own story there.
Is that why he already appeared in the previous chapter?
Maybe he was like, they bounce back and forth. I don't know.
And that doesn't matter. The real thing that matters to Elizabeth is how women are not named in these things.
At all.
Yeah, and this is where she says, if we go through this chapter carefully, we will find mention of about a dozen women, but with the exception of one given to Moses, all are nameless. Then, as now, names for women and slaves are of no importance. They have no individual life, and why should their personality require a lifelong name?
Yeah, because they don't really matter. And so therefore, there is the reason why they should not vote, and they shouldn't have rights, and they need to defer to the men in their lives. And she's like, obviously, this is a bunch of hooey.
This is so ridiculous.
And this is where the criminal code comes up.
This is my okay, yeah.
Our civil and criminal codes, remember, this is 1900s.
Okay.
Reflect many points in the spirit of the Mosaic, which is the Mosaic law is just the 10 Commandments, right? That's what I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
In the criminal code, United States, we find no feminine pronouns. It's always he, his, him. We are arrested, tried, and hung, but singularly enough, we are denied the highest privileges of citizens because the pronouns she, hers, and her are not found in constitutions. And, that went well past even getting the right to vote because obviously and I know that women couldn't even get a credit card till 1974 because we're still not in those.
Credit cards were 80s.
Oh, credit cards was 80?
Mm-hmm.
What did we get in 74? We could open a bank account?
I'm not sure.
74, we were able to get maybe bank credit. Maybe that's what it was. Regardless, way after 1895, because we're just not, we could be convicted, but they're like, oh, but it doesn't say she can own property. It says he. It's funny that we say separation of church and state when in reality, is it?
It's the church that guided
all of our laws.
The culture of the state is essentially what we're dealing with.
Oh, she says, it's a pertinent question. If women can pay the penalties of their crimes as a he, why may they not enjoy the privileges of a citizen as he? And if she was around saying that today, they'd be like, are you talking about taking on the personality of a male?
And this about the criminal code stuff is in response to, this is Exodus 3, verses 19 through 22, where she talks about the women borrowing of her neighbor, I think that means,
just having a little side,
just
little
a little,
infidelity,
a little nicking or taking, not infidelity.
Oh.
I didn't get to the other part of what they're borrowing.
Okay.
I like that you're like, you mean a nooner?
Was it a nooner?
So
No, that's not where you're going. Oh, darn
But
it.
every woman shall borrow of her neighbor and of her that sojourneth her house. Steal jewels of silver and jewels of gold to put them upon your sons. So this is about freeing the Israelites using the jewels and silvers, and all the
making the ladies steal all that.
fancy stuff. And the ladies were like, yeah, we'll do it because we do what's right.
We got to do what we're told.
And Stanton does write about how this was also, she said, this is a position that some of our good abolitionists took. These are her words, when Africans were escaping from American bondage, that the slaves had the right to seize horses, boats, anything to help them to Canada, to find safety in the shadow.
Because they needed to get out.
Because they needed to get out. And they're like, listen, because she makes the point that these Egyptians would not have all this silver and gold if it wasn't for the labor
of the ladies.
Yes.
Of the ladies.
And that same idea has been applied to other situations. Mm-hmm. But yeah, isn't that interesting that she mentions abolition? She says good abolitionists, but doesn't talk about, again, where parts of the Bible would justify. Well, she does talk about that, but it's more for the subservience of women in particular.
Yes.
I do like the other quotes. Is our fathers in an inspired moment said, no just government can be formed without the consent of the governed. I saw somewhere whose quote that actually was. I'll have to put that in our show note. But I like the discussion of these different sneaky things women did for sneaky. It was theft.
Yeah, it was theft.
But righteous theft.
It was righteous because they were the chosen people.
But
they were the chosen people.
But isn't it funny that it was okay to do it when it was for...
It was really for God.
It was for God.
They were God's chosen people.
But in today's world, and it seems like back then for all of history, women are punished much more severely for the same crimes.
Same crimes, yeah.
As men. So
that is true. She talks a lot about, obviously they needed women to populate the whole, of Egypt, right? But no credit is given to those women that are doing the populating, and wouldn't it make sense, since we are doing the populating and there is a commandment that you should honor thy father and thy mother, that you would think, she says, do our sons in their law schools who read the common law of England and its commentators rise from their studies with higher respect for women? Do they from seminaries rise from their learnings with higher respect for their mothers? They should have in their first, how could they respect them when in their first learnings from the church and from what they're brought up with, see nothing but disrespect and contempt from the Bible, that they're, how can we expect them to learn respect when their core beliefs in being brought up, the women are not honored and definitely not respected. If they were, we would know how old they were, and there would be like a little flow chart of all the ladies and where they came from. There's no flow chart of all the ladies.
I'm surprised they didn't do a flow chart of all the ladies. Yeah, that's
how could they? There's not enough information, and really, no one's updated the Bible since I think the Lutherans, and I don't know when he did it.
Right after that, she says, alas, in both cases, they may have learned their first lessons of disrespect and contempt. She's like, this Bible, I learned it from you, Dad.
I learned it from you.
This disrespect.
I can't help myself. I just need to take women. It says it. It says we just take women and make them have our babies.
And I think it's vessels.
You know what really, really fun? It's funny when I read the Bible. It's like from the loins of the man. And I'm like, no.
You're like, this is definitely not accurate.
The only thing coming from the loins of the man is a little bit of,
juice, sweat.
Yeah, a little sweat.
Joanna.
Well, I'm just saying. I think it's funny that they're saying. And
that is, yeah.
Came from the loins.
And she's like, you say it comes from the loins. You should have said it came from the brains if you think men are so smart.
Yes.
Think about that. So I'm following. It is very hard to go in order but we already moved on. So what you just mentioned was a reaction from Exodus 4 verses 18 through 26.
Look at you getting the.
Do you know why we also did not mention these
Numbers?
the verses before.
The verses.
Listen, I had to get a new glasses prescription. This stuff is written smaller than the directions on the back of a Mucinex D-pack.
I had to get out my readers.
See a thing.
I need to see the numbers.
And then now I'm like, oh, we're reading the Bible.
I have a question, side quest.
Oh, yeah.
Why, do you know, why is the Bible written in verses? Why are they numbered? Can you tell me?
Well, because then you can easily reference. Also, how else, would you get a tattoo if you had to write out the whole verse?
Right.
Instead, you can just
or
be
a bumper
like,
sticker.
Right. You got
I get
to
it.
shorten it. You just got to be like, John 3:16. You know what I'm talking about.
Don't even have to look it up. I love it.
Exodus 4:24.
Okay, makes sense now.
Yeah. The reason that I love this part, too, is because this is when Stanton starts to just use the word ass a lot, like jackass. And I can't help but reading it in 2025 brain.
Yeah.
Where she's like, so Moses took his wife and his sons and set them on an ass.
Yep.
And returned to the land of Egypt.
It's a donkey.
Yeah.
That's probably the most interesting thing in the Bible is when they call donkeys asses.
Still.
And jackasses.
It was the most interesting thing for me back when I was 8, and now
when I'm
28.
Much older.
Just kidding. I'm old enough to make age jokes.
Oh, so we're at the point of circumcisions. I'm so excited.
I'm so glad you're excited because I have some questions. So this is when Moses married Zipporah. Is that how
Sephora?
Is that another? This is a great name,
isn't it? I just met someone named Sephora.
I was saying it Zipporah. I'm kidding.
You know what? I'm saying Sephora because the audiobook I listened to say that, but
yeah,
I'm going to guess that she's right.
So I need you, since you're excited about this, Stanton, this is when they were talking about the Lord wanted to kill the son. Her son had not been circumcised. So with a woman's quick intuition and natural courage to save the life of her husband, she skillfully performed the necessary operation.
With a rock.
With a rock, right?
A sharp rock.
A sharp rock. So Stanton writes, the word circumcision seems to have a very elastic meaning.
Yeah, I know.
Tell me your take on this.
I don't
Or should
really
we not? Should we just leave this one alone?
Well, I was like, wow, there's a lot of talk about circumcision.
There we go. Sure.
So I was trying to figure out, is it good to be circumcised or bad?
It's good. That's why she had to do it so quickly. She was like, this dude's going to kill our son. We got to clean it up real quick. Get a stone.
But is it showing that he's you had the Egyptians and you had the Israelites, right? Two different groups, correct? Am I
correct.
Right. So the Egyptians.
We're like, we don't tell us somebody.
So the Egyptians.
Somebody tell us.
This is my question. The Egyptians uncircumcised or circumcised? Or the Israelites were uncircumcised? This is where I get confused when I'm reading stuff.
That's what I thought you would tell me.
Oh, come on.
Do you have anybody that knows? But yeah. And so this is where she's saying, this is what I didn't understand. So the word circumcision seems to have a very elastic meaning. Uncircumcised lips is used to describe that want of power to speak fluently.
So you just say whatever the hell you want.
Yeah. So untidy. So uncircumcised. Bad news.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's women with their uncircumcised lips talking about ideas.
Quit it.
So you said that you were excited about this part.
Well, I'm like,
You said you love circumcision.
I don't love it, but I've always wondered why some people circumcised, some didn't. And I know, right, Jewish people circumcise, right away. Whereas
I wouldn't say right away. I thought there was
is there a little wait period? But
there's a party.
So it's very important. And remember, the Old Testament is the Jewish Torah.
Right.
Right?
The Pentateuch.
The Pentateuch.
There we go. We got that.
So they she did it with a rock because it would save her from the wrath of God. Because God in the Old Testament, not a nice God.
Mm-mm.
Not a nice guy.
This is punishing. But so often, well, that's what sets everybody up. That's why I'm like, this Bible thing is just to get people to fall the F in line.
Yeah.
When people are being really mean and threatening to kill them.
Yeah, you'll get killed.
Yeah.
You better follow this law.
Yeah.
Or you'll die. Same thing with the Ten Commandments. These are the laws.
Yeah.
You better fall in line.
So, and Stanton is the reason that she brings that up, I believe, is to show that this really doesn't allow space for women to be clean and prepared for the
Because
Lord or any
because
of these.
we can't be circumcised.
Right.
Nothing for women. There's no way to be chosen.
Yeah.
No way to protect yourself. There's so much in each little section about being a mom and not getting the honor that we need. But really, how can we be upset when it's really this book that everybody is following that is saying, well, you're just doing your part. You have to do this for God. This is your duty. And that even this lady knew, God wanted this circumcised baby, and she didn't have any skills. She's just going to grab a little rock, so that I'm sure the woman reading that would be like, oh, I would do whatever. That's a strong woman.
Yeah. Again, we're seeing women are going to do whatever it takes. I mean, I guess the guys are making a little bit of a sacrifice.
What is their sacrifice?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's not in the chunks of the Bible that are picked for the women's Bible, I'll tell you.
No. She also said that women weren't even accepted as sacrifices to God. He was like, gotta have a male animal. We don't want these ladies animals. I think it's so funny because where did we populate the earth, and then we're not good enough for I can't even be sacrificed?
I can't even be. Don't worry. I believe that we did. Humankind has made up for lost time.
Yeah, we're in it right now.
We're in it.
We're being sacrificed.
Yes.
That's
like
good.
It's fine.
It's good. We
Even
made progress.
before then.
Yes.
Everybody loved to sacrifice a virgin.
That's true.
It was very in fashion for a good long time. So
that's in the New Testament, eh?
I'm moving through. Look, we're so orderly. And anytime we start to go orderly, I'm like, I feel very stiff. I want to just freestyle. I want to freestyle. I'm a robot. So
chapter 5.
And then in chapter 5, which covers Exodus, this is Exodus 12.
Oh, good job with the Roman numerals.
Thank you. And this is about the Passover. Exodus 12, verse 12, 18, then 43 through 48. There's somebody out there that knows that from like saying that. That's so radical.
Yeah, people like to quote stuff.
And the whole, I believe, Exodus 12 is about detailing the Passover, including the instructions for the Passover lamb.
Yeah.
I can't talk about lambs. I can't do it.
You can't talk about the blood of lambs?
Blood is a sign, and the feast of unleavened bread, and culminating the death of the firstborn in Egypt and the Israelites' departure. So the parts that they keep for the women's Bible that they're discussing. So this chapter talks about the different rules for Passover. And again, Elizabeth is like, so women were permitted to perform a subordinate part in the grand, is it Hejira? Beside carrying their respective infants, they manifested their patriotism by stealing all the jewels of gold and silver, all the rich silks and velvets from the Egyptian neighbors, all they could carry according to the commands of Moses.
He's like, take it all. We got to get out of here.
Yeah. And women are like, sure, we love to steal crap.
For the greater good, I'll take it.
And why should these women take any part in the Passover? Their condition remained about the same under dynasties in all lands. They were regarded merely as necessary factors in race building. As Jewish wives or Egyptian concubines, there was no essential difference in their social status.
Yeah, you're just there to have babies. That's it.
So again, she's like, come on.
What is wrong? I mean, men are mentioned, and we're just the daughters of men.
Yeah, and she goes, in most of the sacrifices, female animals are not accepted, like you mentioned.
Yes.
Males are the race, females are only the creatures to carry it on. This is a part that's really important because this is when she starts to talk about pregnancy and carrying on the line. So this is a service. So women are here to carry on the race. And again, when she's saying race, in this particular instances for this book, she means humankind.
Yeah, because we all came from Noah.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
All of us.
And men never fail to dwell on maternity as a disqualification for the possession of many civil and political rights. She talks about men will declaim at once the disabilities of maternity in a sneering, contemptuous way. So that's where all this stuff comes from, stuff that we thought was like of a modern world. And this, did you notice too, she invokes a pretty famous lady. We point them to Queen Victoria.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
She's like, who has carefully reared a large family while considering and signing all state papers.
She is a patterned wife and mother.
I like that. She's carefully reared a large family, probably without any help whatsoever.
None. I'm sure she did it all on her own. She didn't have little side ladies even. I bet she even had people breastfeeding them.
Oh, for sure.
What do they call them? Wet nurses.
You know, they had the Pharaoh's daughter who got Moses, I believe, hired Moses' mom to be his wet nurse.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. His own mom?
I believe so.
I
Please
love that.
check me on this.
Oh, my gosh.
So she just keeps on bringing this back to like, and this is where the Bible is trying to say that women, you know, just can have babies and that makes them soulless, nameless thieves.
They say all that, right? But then she's like, but in actuality, you know, in the church, women do everything. They literally do everything quietly, right? So like they say, you don't have any rights, you don't do this, but like none of it would exist if there weren't women. And even in that 19th century, she's like, yeah, like look at the church. Like, who makes the robes? Who does all that?
That's
It's
right.
the ladies.
But it is more about that, talking about women being totally removed from these traditions and the
A ritual?
thank you.
Is it a ritual?
The
I mean, it
rituals,
is.
yeah.
Because
okay.
if you put the blood on there, God would say, "Oh, good, you listen to me. I will pass by your house. You're a good one. You're listening.
Yeah.
You're a good listener.
You're good.
Good job. Kill that lamb."
So
I hope they eat the lamb.
they're totally going to eat the lamb, but women have to, you know, prepare it. This is what she's covering, I think, Exodus 15, some certain verses. But she's like, in these texts, we know that the work of men was done on the sixth day,
Yeah. Yes.
but the women must work as usual on the seventh. We see the same thing today. Women's work is never done. What irony to say, let them rest on the seventh day. The Puritan fathers would not let the children romper, nor give their wives a drive on a Sunday. Did I say romper? Yeah.
Romp around. A little
They would not
romp.
let them romp play.
The kids can't romp around.
I wouldn't let a kid romper.
You better be quiet. You're supposed to be resting.
So the Puritan fathers can't even let their children play or give their children's, nor give their wives a drive on a Sunday, but they enjoyed a better dinner on the Sabbath than any other day.
Because they could take the time to eat it because they weren't doing anything. But the woman,
Right.
that soulless creature in the kitchen, had to make that meal.
And it is so, this is what I think to this day this is the very basis where it's almost like the feminine work is completely devalued.
Yeah.
And now we see like how much labor, like emotional labor and these different unpaid, like in the views of, in the eyes of capitalism, the work that women do is not monetarily valuable.
No. And it's a lot of mental labor, you know, like she was saying, like with the church, like, you know, they're like, oh, well, I'm going to go to church. Well, like, who's going to make the stuff in the church?
Right,
Who's going to decide?
Right. The emotional work and the connective work that women do, you know, bringing people together and making sure that the gathering has
food
and refreshments and keeping everybody's spirits up. That is seriously important work. Like stuff would not exist without this kind of work, but it isn't quantifiable. It isn't sellable. So capitalism is like, we don't dig it. Let's just refer back to Exodus.
But maybe that's maybe that's what people are looking to go back to. They're like, man, if the women were just not working and they were at home doing that stuff, life would be better, you know, because now we have women that are distracted by their own jobs,
right,
and not taking care of their men, right?
Oh, you just said the thing, because I was like, women are still taking care of everything and working,
you
just said the main point.
Yeah.
But they're not taking care of their Moses.
They're not taking care of Moses.
That's right.
They're not taking care of those loins.
That's right.
And feeding them well.
Yeah. What about the loins that we got to worry about?
Yeah. Women do a lot for society. And she's like, when will we get the credit? When will we get the rights to go around, you know? Because I'm sure people were like, yeah, that's great. You do that. This is so good, honey. But like, you can't vote because the Bible says.
Yeah. Like, don't trouble yourself.
Says he. Doesn't say she. I don't know. I hate to talk about pronouns again, honey, but Definitely he, him.
We're getting around the wrap-up point.
Because I think, so she keeps talking about the casual reader. That's us.
Do you have something?
I'm just saying, she's always like, the casual reader might not notice. And I'm like, I've been just thinking, Elizabeth, I'm the casual reader.
And I haven't noticed a damn thing, Elizabeth.
But now I'm not. I was a casual reader.
Yeah.
And now I'm turning into her and I'm like reading it and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a problem.
Yeah. You're like, what? I'm a casual reader and I'm seeing all this stuff.
Well, no, I'm not. She's making me be an uncasual reader.
And that's what we hope will happen.
And that's what we hope all of you will stop being casual readers and look deeper into this and go,
Yeah. Because again, throughout this story, women are strangely absent, except for when they need to pop up to help out with the party.
And save the world.
Or
to steal that gold.
Or to get the funds to get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
And I think my other favorite before we wrap up is when she goes through Exodus 32. And this is the only point when they're covering Exodus, and I say they, because up until now, it was just Elizabeth Cady Stanton commenting on the Exodus parts.
Yes. Yeah,
but we have LDB.
LDB's back in the house.
Coming back. Yeah, I love it. In the best part that she brings up, so in Exodus 32, this is Moses on Mount Sinai.
Oh, I love this.
Receiving the 10 Commandments, the Israelites, impatient and fearful of abandonment, demand Aaron, Moses' brother, to create a golden calf to worship. That's like already breaking a commandment.
Yeah.
But
to be honest, it took Moses 40 years. It says they were sick of waiting.
They're like, can we get a calf?
They were just like, you keep saying that God wants this,
right.
But like 40 years, come on, buddy.
But of course, once again, the dudes were like, we need some gold, ladies.
Ladies, I know you're mad at Moses, and we don't have anything.
Yeah. So they're take all their jewelry, and this is the great quote from ECS. I don't have any LBD. Men think that self-sacrifice is the most charming of all cardinal virtues for women. Uh-huh. And in order to keep it in healthy working order, they make opportunities for its illustration as often as possible. I would fain teach women that self-development is a higher duty than self-sacrifice.
Oh, honey, I wish people would listen to you.
That crap sticks to this day. If you think of the backlash against feminist movements, if you think of almost any time someone wants to tear a woman down, they call her selfish.
Yeah, you're being selfish.
You're being selfish. What they're trying to say is, give me your gold.
Give me your gold.
Give me your gold. And when you give me all your gold, go steal some from the neighbors.
Yep. Do my bidding. Selfish.
So, I mean, that has been a sin for hundreds and hundreds of years just because some disgruntled dude. But
she was saying, like, they've crafted it so well, and the churches have preached it so well that this self-sacrifice is what will get you to the higher land and in the graces of God, right?
Right.
So they're like, we have to self-sacrifice. That's just who we are.
And women are. And it's so convenient. Again, I can't help but read some of these passages through the eyes of, our current economic stuff, like capitalism. It just fits in so well to tell people to not want anything and to work.
Just work.
And we'll catch you on the flippy dippy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just work. You got to work. You got to work for the man to keep things running.
Right.
Don't think about your family. Don't think about...
Just work.
Don't think about going to Hawaii. Don't think about these things. Maybe that's why, maybe when people started questioning it, that's when because I don't know how you feel this, but I feel like people following this biblically has risen again. Like maybe there's ebbs and flows. Like I think maybe it kind of went down low in like the 80s-ish, 90s, but I feel like there's more of a push now for people to like be devout and to go to these churches where they are, immersed in the Bible again. Like, and they're going back to the Bible. Like there's a lot more churches where you are
more of a formalist or fundamentalist.
Fundamentalist, yes.
Yeah, because it fits so well into, I don't know, fascism.
Oh,
did you?
Did you say that?
I mean, but it does. It really works out well, especially if you just take it in the formalist way.
You're like, you need to listen. Listen to Daddy.
Yeah.
Listen to Daddy.
Just wait around for one guy to tell you what to do.
Yeah. You just have faith.
I think
it'll all work out, even though the world is crumbling around you.
It's so handy.
Follow the word.
The one last thing that she mentions that is just a real, had a LOL.
You had a LOL.
Yeah. She talks about the self-sacrifice again, and the men asking women to give up their jewelry. And she's like, this reminds me of the Tea Party. She says in here that, of course, men threw tea in the harbor.
Oh, yes.
Because women
liked tea.
Yes. And then she's like, they didn't throw
They were probably reading the Bible, sipping their tea.
And it was ripped from their hands.
Because these men.
And then she's like, but not whiskey and tobacco.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
thanks, America.
And that could be true. I had always heard that tea was chosen because that was the favored drink of the British. And that's where coffee became more popular. That could seriously just be like a YouTube story.
Yeah, that was really funny.
It doesn't.
That was an LOL.
But it also doesn't track that. I'm like, why would they be worried about taxes or did they have to pay for taxes on tobacco? But I'm like, they weren't getting.
They must have.
Like,
I mean,
Irish tobacco imported.
I feel like she's a pretty educated lady and went back and was probably like.
And she was fresher.
Yeah, just 100 years instead of 220-ish, whatever we're at.
Next time I'm bringing in a timeline.
But
I like that. She's like, and they took our tea. We were the ones that sacrificed for America.
Not the men.
That's right.
They had their beverages, their meads.
Sure. So we made it through Exodus, trying to go in order, and we lasted almost the whole way. We may just go freestyle next time.
Can I end with I love that she says, so in the beginning I talked to you about the people in Germany saying, might not be real. And then she just ends, well, LDB does. She's like, whether fact or fiction, this Exodus is one of the most melancholy records in human history. Our finer sentiments of pity and sympathy find relief only in the doubts that it's true.
See you next week.
See you next week.